Rick James, 501c3 tax status. It's a non-profit designation for your tax status. Now, what are a couple popular 501c3 tax status entities that we may know of? The first one maybe should be Planned Parenthood, right? So we're talking about a entity, right, who has a nonprofit designation for their tax status, who facilitated maybe even countless abortions, right? And if you look a little further into some statistics on the abortion, you'll notice that of all the abortions, 40% of all abortions done were for black females, right? And you would go, wow, so you have such a small percentage of the population, which black is about 14%, right? So it's fair to say 7% of the women are having 40% of all abortions. In other words, we're talking ethnic cleansing. And make no mistake, white people are right behind them. In other words, they're killing us all, right? So that's a very famous 501c3. In other words, they're yoked up with the federal government of the United States of America. Now, another one, you could just say, hey, another one is the Church of Satan. So there's a couple examples of a couple 501c3s. But the 501c3s that I'll be speaking about are the modern American churches, right? So you have this status, but in 1954, this amendment to the Constitution comes out. It basically dictates what a church or call them preacher, teacher, shepherd, can and can't say, can and can't print. They basically can't use lobbyists, right? And so it basically says in 1954, when this amendment comes through, that these existing or future 501c3 churches, no longer can say anything about, well, I shouldn't say anything about politics. I can say this: they cannot endorse nor oppose political candidates. They cannot give political funds to campaigns, etc. And when I look at how crooked that is, that there is a corporate group of churches in America that would accept that deal. You mean to tell me that our shepherds can no longer speak the truth? They can no longer say, hey, don't vote for that guy, it's a sin, or hey, vote this way. And that's what a shepherd does, right? So you basically, from 1954 on, you have these corporations. You have these big, huge groups of corporations, separate corporate churches. An example would be, say, the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the #1 corporate church in America, separate archdiocese all the way down, and individual churches are corporations, right? Because the Catholic Church exists in Rome. Now, in second place, interesting, is Southern Baptist, right? Then you have the Methodists right behind them, and then you have what's considered non-denominational status. So it's a fair statement to say, from 1954 and up, you had preachers, teachers, leaders, shepherds, call them what you would like, but you had them agreeing to a set of terms dictated by the federal government that does not allow them to speak freely, or they lose their tax status. Now, the modern era of the American church, as far as Protestant denominations go, I've been to a lot of them. It seems like, I'm not saying they're all about money, but money is a factor here. right? When you go to these mega churches, smoke screens, tight jeans, those type of churches, right? You'll notice a very specific process of sitting down, and they have the music that comes on, and then you'll have the big screen up there saying you can give in one of four ways. The basket that's being passed around right now, there's buckets in the back. You can make a payment right now digitally. We can even attach ourselves to your bank account if you'd like, on auto pay. And then they give some type of a speech about giving or tithing. My brethren, it's all about money. Isn't that what corporations are after? Why would it be different in our American church? Why would, if we are in the stages of late stage capitalism, that's usually caused by greedy corporations. And if we are in the late stage of the church, then it would make sense that these greedy organizations have allowed the devil a foothold. Now, during our American Revolution, there was a group of men. These men were despised by the king, and they were actually on a very short list of gentlemen who, if found, had an instant kill order on them, meaning no trial, etc. Right? This group of men, the loyalists hated. They said that they maybe throw fuel on the fire, rebellion, revolution. This was a group of ministers in 1775 called the Black Robe Regiment. Unless this is all fake history, I don't know, but I've read it several places, that there was this group of preachers who would have resisted tyrants, preached divine rights, birth rights. We go from people who were willing to die, not only willing to die, but willing to train their men for battle. Now, we know the story of Paul Revere coming from Boston to Lexington for the Battle of Lexington. We are from Massachusetts, so we know that story. We hear that story. What we don't necessarily see is, where did Paul Revere go and who did he talk to when he got to Lexington? He talked to a Congregationalist, a minister of God. And he asked him, do you have any men who can fight? What did the minister say? I have 300 men. I've been training them for this moment. So amongst the most despised people in this war by the crown were these preachers, these unincorporated preachers, who, if you tried to tell one of these guys, hey, you want to keep your tax-free status, you can't say this, you can't write this, you cannot legislate this. Now, that amendment to the Constitution was repealed, I think it was maybe 70 years, just in 2025. But that doesn't mean the guys that signed on that deal did not know what they were doing. Why would you yoke? If Christ was to be the head of the church, would Christ have yoked himself with the United States federal government? No. He would have flipped the tables on him. And so we will speak the truth regardless of your tax status. So we have this modern era in the United States of the church. And in my opinion, I didn't know this, it's these massive corporations. I'm not saying all of them are bad, because that'd be a very foolish thing to say. But the fact is, bare minimum, you got accountants at the end of the year, and or you say this, don't say that. The government will come in and audit you. giving the United States federal government the chance to come in and audit a church is the type of thing that the Black Robe Regiment wouldn't have tolerated. They would have said, kick rocks. Yahuwah.